President Trump has presented a 28-point plan to end the war between Russia and Ukraine. We're moving on to story number 8, the push for peace. Joining us now to discuss this, former White House official, former Pentagon official, national security expert, and Senate candidate, Alabama, Morgan Murphy. Great to be with you, along with former Pentagon official and senior fellow at the Atlantic Council, Alex Plitsas. Great to have you both here. Alex, I'll start with you. President Trump stood by this plan, saying that Ukraine needs to make this deal. Watch.
He'll have to like it, and if he doesn't like it, then, they should just keep fighting, I guess,
The suggestion that you made, though, was that if he doesn't accept it, that the U.S. would pull back its support for Ukraine.
Well, at some point he's going to have to accept something. He hasn't accepted. You remember right in the Oval Office not so long ago, I said, you don't have the cards.
And then Trump also said after that, on his way to today, he was boarding a plane, and he said that, Zelensky is going to continue to fight his little heart out if he doesn't take this deal. So, Alex, do you think that this deal will actually get signed by next Thursday, or is Ukraine preparing for pushback?
So the president's also made a couple of other comments, and he said something to the effect of that if it's close, he'll extend the timeline. So we'll see what the Ukrainians eventually come back with. But there's a couple of points in there that I think they're going to take issue with. So it caps them at 600,000 troops, which will put them at about a 4-to-1 disadvantage to the Russians. And the Russians also specifically asked for a piece of territory that they haven't gained, that if they were to hand over, would allow them to make a future run on Kyiv, as well as concessions on what weapons the Ukrainians can have. And when you're into these situations, the questions you need to ask yourself is, why are the Russians asking for these specific concessions? And in Putin's case, it's pretty clear that he's setting himself up for a future option if he wants to continue conflict in the future. So I think the Ukrainians will push back on a couple of these points, and the Europeans have said they will as well.
Imagine they don't want to give up a lot of their land either. Morgan, I'll go to you. Under the plan, Ukraine would lose territory currently occupied by Russia. And Zelensky has made this very clear, and he's unhappy about this. He calls it one of the hardest moments in Ukraine's history, a decision that could mean either losing dignity or sacrificing a key partner. Watch this.
This is one of the most difficult moments in our history. Currently, the pressure on Ukraine is one of the hardest. Ukraine may now face a very difficult choice, either losing its dignity or the risk of losing a key partner, either 28 difficult points or an extremely difficult winner.
So that's Zelensky there. Morgan, is this a really good plan for him? I mean, you've got Zelensky and Trump. They've had this back and forth. President Trump really trying to put the pressure on him here to make a deal.
Yes, Zelensky is in a jam politically. This is going to be a hard pill for the Ukrainian people to swallow. But, as has been pointed out many times, Russia has 5 times the population of Ukraine. So unless Europeans are willing to put boots on the ground, they're going to run out of men and possibly materiel. Russia's outproducing all of NATO in 155 rounds. It is a grim situation, and it's one that my former boss, Lieutenant General Kellogg, would say we cannot kill our way out of this conflict. Wars are not settled by op-ed pieces in the Washington Post. Wars are settled through tough negotiation where both sides need to give up something and feel like they lost a little bit when they leave the table for it to be a fair negotiation.
Yeah, that's just right. And before Trump, he left the White House here, he did say that, and Alex alluded to this, that this isn't the final offer, that there will be further negotiations. But how long does that clock run out? I mean, is President Trump going to say, all right, is he going to put a deadline on this, Alex?
I think it depends on how close they come in terms of response. If it looks like they're going to be able to close the gap, I think the president will allow this to continue to go on. Based on the experience of watching him in previous negotiations. I mean, I think if there was an issue here is that, Putin strung the president along for a while, and that there's still pressure we could have put on the Russians with secondary sanctions, et cetera. And so if you look at the current structure of the deal, it does heavily favor Moscow. So we've put all of the pressure on Ukraine in the sense that we've threatened to take away all of the military and intelligence support if they don't sign. but we left pressure on the table with the Russians. And unfortunately, it doesn't leave an even negotiating position to start from. And the Ukrainians are at a disadvantage. And as our other guest just mentioned here, it's a smaller country with a smaller number of people and economy, et cetera. It's not a threat to Russia overall. So when you look at what the Russians are asking for, again, Putin is trying to set himself up for a future scenario. And he was also incredibly smart from the beginning. He never declared what his actual goal was in Ukraine. We know what it was because we had captured some documentation. So at this point, it's about getting as much as he can, setting himself up for future opportunity as necessary. And I think, as also was just alluded to, unless the Europeans or NATO are willing to commit forces in the event that the Russians invade again in the future, nothing's really going to dissuade Putin. So I think he's betting on the fact that he can buy some time, he can weaken NATO, he can weaken some of the European states by playing in some of the elections, and the hope that NATO and the U.S. won't actually get involved in the future, and he'll live to fight another day. He's incredibly bright, and he's been doing this for 25 years, relatively unchecked, and that's why we are where we are.
Morgan, over to you on this, because European leaders, they're voicing concerns in tomorrow's G20 meeting on the horizon. How much leverage does Trump really have to push Ukraine toward that agreement? And can this war truly ever come to an end?
Well, they can voice all the concerns they want, but Europe needs to step up. This is a continent of 500 million people that is looking to the United States and saying, oh, we'll hold your coat while you get into this fight. We'll hold your coat while you supply Ukraine with all the weapons and intelligence it needs. Well, no, y'all are completely capable of stepping up. They've got an economy, $21 trillion. They've got 500 million people. Europe can defend itself. Russia has an economy the size of Italy. It's smaller than the economy of Texas. Come on, Europe. I mean, if you're going to carpet our president, step up.
Yeah, good point. We'll wait to see what happens next. Morgan Murphy, Alex Plitsas, thank you so much. We appreciate you both coming on. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday night.